Okay, we got a good one today. Let's strap on in and get talking about foam and paddles. I know I look like an absolute psycho, but I've been playing pickleball all day and I got sunburnt as hell a couple days ago, so forgive me. But just know the context of this video. We're gonna be diving into a very, I think, serious topic. If you're familiar with this pickleball channel here, I've always tried to weigh in when there's a controversy or an issue that I see happening in paddles or the pickleball landscape. First it was delamination, then it was grit on paddles, and now it's about foam in paddles, Gen 3, if you will. And I just want to sit down and give my take from a paddle engineer, manufacturer background about where we're headed with this foam and paddle situation, how it happened, and I really want to spend a lot of time talking about USA Pickleball and some issues that I'm seeing from them. So this will be a long, dirty, nerdy video. So hopefully that's what you're signed up for. But we're gonna talk about some very interesting topics. I'm gonna be referencing my notes as we go, and as we go through it, I have been working on a Gen 3 paddle for almost a year now, starting with a pure foam EVA paddle and Nomex cores as well using foam. We've tried about everything. So I will also be giving my take from like a engineering developing standpoint of like what goes into that and frankly why I think we're gonna see more and more issues. So let's dive into all that right now. As an introduction to this, I want to talk about the progression we've made as paddles, if you're not aware. So there's Gen 1, which of course is just a cold press paddle. We're going to use carbon fiber as the example for all of this, just to keep things easier. So a sheet of carbon fiber, a sheet of typically plastic or Nomex/Kevlar, they're basically the same, and then it's sandwiched via glue and an edge guard, creating a paddle. That was how most paddles were made, and a lot of them still are. Gen 2, again, I know you probably already know this, but just in case, involves a thermoformed production of paddles, which involves a mold and often a foam edge around the edge. And this is very important for the rest of this video to remember that a thermoformed paddle is also called unibody, and that there is foam throughout the entire perimeter up through the handle, an EVA foam, in fact, that goes around as part of the thermoforming process. It is then heat molded and technically what we call a unibody, one piece of carbon fiber at that point, with a plastic core often in the middle. And then Gen 3 is the introduction. It's a colloquial term, if you will, for the introduction of more foam into a also thermoformed paddle. We've seen it most commonly in two paddles right now on the market, the Joola Gen 3 lines that they have ran with the Gen 3 naming and called their paddles Gen 3. And then of course the Gearbox Pro, which is using an extreme amount of foam as well as carbon fiber. Now there's also three main inciting videos or incidents that are the reason I'm making this video in particular. I want to reference a video that just came out from Pickleball Studio about the Vatic Oni paddle and his take on the foam and paddle. That is a big part of what we'll be talking about today. Another piece that we will be referencing often is Zane Navratil's clip about how that he thinks that he uses a great reference of baseball and how at the pro level they all have to use wood bats, and he thinks that the pro level or advanced level even of pickleballers should be using Gen 1 or even Gen 2, but no foam in their paddles, nothing more extremely powerful because it's ruining the game. And then the third thing is interesting is rumors. I'm saying rumors even though it seems almost confirmed that Ben Johns, the best pickleball player in the world, is using a previous generation, a Gen 2, in fact, of his paddle, but with the skin of a Gen 3 to still market and look like he's using this Gen 3 paddle. but he's not, which if that is true, and I'm not saying it is because I don't want to pretend I know, I'm just going off all the rumors on the internet. You can hear in the games that it does kind of sound like it's not a Gen 3 paddle, but that is still opinion, so keep that in mind. And if in fact he is using a Gen 2, it is maybe all the more proof that Gen 3 might not be something we want to pursue as manufacturers or as the sport in general, maybe. Now, this section of the video is about USA Pickleball, and everything I'm about to say here is an assumption. I want that very clear that this is not true of what happened. It is just a hunch I have about what happened here. So I want to also mention I've reached out to USA Pickle as a manufacturer who pays my dues as being part of the manufacturer 4 times spread out, both following up to a previous email and as a new email, and to multiple people at USA Pickleball for their official statement about foam and paddles. And I have been completely ignored, which is, I don't think is great. And I don't love it. So, but I do think I know why. Again, all assumption, think, don't know for sure. And let's talk about why I think that. I'm gonna hold this paddle up here. This was our first foam paddle, which was just straight up EVA foam all in the middle. No plastic at all. And now a paddle like this won't pass via the deflection test. There's too much give here. You can feel it. It gives into the foam. And they're illegal. USA Pickleball says you can't do USA foam. So you're probably wondering, how are all of these, let's even say half foam, even though it's more than half foam, and an additional material like Kevlar, carbon, or plastic, how are they getting passed? Well, what they're able to do essentially, to just really dumb it down, because we do have versions here that are passed with foam, what you're able to do is once you add a more rigid structure in addition to the foam, it won't give. And it's basically that simple. There's a lot more to it, but as far as being able to pass the deflection test, when there's a more solid structure in there to keep with the deflection, you can have the foam in there and it'll still pass. So that has caused all these manufacturers to race around this curve to try to get a foam into their paddles without, to add power. Everyone wants the most powerful paddle without, breaking the rules. So again, this is no criticism on, let's say, Gearbox or anyone else, Joola, anyone who's adding foam to their paddles at all. I give them all the kudos in the world. You see a Gearbox overgrip on this paddle. In fact, like they, good job. They did it. And I think it's on USA Pickleball, not any of the manufacturers. So I want that extremely clear as well. Now here's what I think happened though. When you fill out the form in addition to sending your 6 paddles away to be tested, there is a part where you tell what the core is. And it's very vague. So you just would say the cell size if you're using polypropylene plastic, and that's about it. You just say what's in there. You don't say 80% foam, 20% carbon fiber, or I guess I can't speak exactly what like Joola and Gearbox did, if maybe they did have further conversations with USA Pickleball. But essentially, if you just kept them in the dark as much as you can and say there's a plastic core with foam, that's the same that they would think a Gen 2 paddle is. It's plastic with a foam edge. And if you don't mention that foam edge maybe is 80% of the paddle, there's no reason they would want to cut the paddle open or look more into it. And that's kind of my running theory, is that when USA Pickleball passed these paddles, they never made a dissection into the paddle. They never interrogated these companies more, and they passed these paddles regretfully. And now that everybody knows that there is just tons of foam in these paddles, I think USA Pickleball is trying to figure out a plan, and maybe that's why they're not answering my emails, because they don't have a plan to move forward, because they don't necessarily want a bunch of us smaller companies to flood the market with even more foam paddles if their overall intention is to cut back on these and try to make them not, and I don't even think they'd make them illegal, so I hesitate to say that, but that's, again, my theory. So now you're probably thinking, well, Larry, USA Pickleball has mentioned that they're going to do an exit velocity test. I hope they do, because I don't know what else they're going to do to try to think of a fair way to do this. Like, imagine Gearbox right now, if they just bought, I'd say, $500,000 worth of paddles to keep up with the demand of their Pro Series, and all of a sudden USA Pickleball just says they're illegal. That wouldn't be fair either. So this is a very delicate situation that USA Pickleball has found themselves in, and that's why I think they're not making a decision yet, because they don't have a good option right now. Now is where I'm going to go through a couple paddles that we've tried in the Gen 3 arena, and basically why we're not releasing one for a while, even though we do have, I think, 2 versions that will pass. So first, again, this is just EVA. This was our first step to get a baseline. It's a fun paddle. It's just our same slice, but with foam. It's cool. Next, of course, was to just say, well, let's just inject the cells with foam and see what that happens, because again, it would pass deflection because it would hit the plastic before it hits the foam, and then you'd still have the foam for when the paddle compresses with a ball on it to then launch the hell out of the ball. And that's what this guy was, and it's great. However, the more you hit it, the plastic cells crumple. They don't stand a chance. Maybe 4 games, maybe even a week if you're lucky of playing. And it's not that the paddle goes bad at all, but it becomes noticeably different. And I'd say even hits harder than a pure foam paddle. And it's fun, but nobody's gonna want to play with you with that paddle. Next led to an experiment with Nomex or Kevlar. And this rigidity holds, and the problem though is that the Kevlar was maybe too malleable and it would not pass deflection. You could still press into it too much, and it played great though. It just is illegal. So there's that. So then walks in the introduction of a polyethylene foam, which is a very soft foam. If you've seen a dissection, like I probably have on the screen here, of the Joola Perseus, an EVA foam is a harder foam that's used at the perimeter, but the polyethylene foam is the softer one that allows that core to float and rebound so much. And this is used very widely in paddle, whatever, and beach tennis rackets, in addition to EVA foam. And we tried a core with that, and that passed and is okay. Internal test, we never actually submitted it for an asterisk there. So that is very interesting, and that is what we've been testing the most lately. And then, of course, we did a version, and you could see some of the experiments here, and we're still working on this, of floating core technology like the Joola that has the edge foam EVA as well as the polyurethane around the honeycomb. So even though we have maybe 2 versions now that would pass, and I'd love to get out on the market, there seems to be such mixed reviews that I don't know if the sport's ready for Gen 3 power paddles. And I don't see an interest in it either, personally. I've been playing with the Gen 1, our cheapest basic paddle, more and more lately. And it's funny how I just find myself a more consistent player without the power. That said, there's totally games where you want to just drill it. So I don't not see the use of a power paddle as well. So just, I want to be clear on that. All that to say is, us moving forward, where do we stand on the situation? We're gonna pause on like any super committal, that's not a word. We're not doing a Gen 3 power paddle anytime soon. What we will probably do is, we are doing this. We've been experimenting with a couple paddles. So what we're really working on is a way to add foam to Gen 1 in a way that hasn't been done before. I think we don't want to follow this mold of a Gen 3 power paddle, but rather use foam, probably a softer foam, to create a perfect control paddle that will lend more to your average non-power player. And the reason I want to do that is the paddles we've had the most success with, like the Slice and the 00 Start, are our paddles that lend really well to that progressing player, and that's our fit in the market, and I think that's okay. Like we know that Joola and Gearbox have power paddles for the people who want those power paddles, and I think you should support those companies for if that's what you're looking for. But moving forward, I think what we do well is serve those intermediate players, anyone from like, I don't know, a beginner all the way up to that 4-5 level. But 4-5 and beyond who can actually harness that power and do some damage with it. I'm safe to admit that they might graduate out of the Kiwi Labs realm. You know, it's hard to say, but I'd be okay with it, even though we have the Canon for those folks as well. So whatever, I'm rambling at this point, but hopefully you found this video pretty interesting. I know I am fascinated by where we're headed with this. I also give big kudos to all the brands who had the courage to go ahead and launch and beat everyone to market on this foam paddle. And it's not like they won't succeed or anything. They have more time to just make adjustments and come out with something even better. So I'm going to sit back and watch what they do and keep working on what we're working on. And I think we're going to see some crazy interesting stuff in this next year of pickleball. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more content. We're back on our grind. Now that it is finally warm in Michigan, pickleball is all we can think about now. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.